What's up everyone and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I have broken them down in the timeline so you could jump around as you see fit. If you find my work valuable, of course I ask you to hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off with phishing. Ukraine's Computer Emergency Response Team, or CERT-UA, is warning of new phishing attacks targeting Ukrainian citizens through compromised email accounts belonging to 3 different Indian entities. The attacks were aimed at stealing sensitive information from compromised accounts. The malicious emails are sent by motherprakash.b@tvsrubber.com and use the subject line "Yara," translates to attention, and claim to be from a domestic email service called ukr.net. TVS Rubber is an Indian-based automotive company that was previously compromised by the threat actors behind this campaign. The messages are crafted to trick the recipients into clicking on a link to change their passwords due to an alleged unauthorized attempt to log into their accounts from an IP address based out of the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk. CERT-UA later added that it detected an additional 20 email addresses that were used in the campaign. Google Threat Analysis Group, or TAG, which focuses on the analysis of nation-state threat actors, revealed to have blocked attacks against hundreds of Ukrainians conducted by Belarus and Russian state-sponsored hackers. The attacks have been attributed to the Russia-linked Fancy Bear Group, aka APT28, and the Belarus-linked Ghostwriter, aka UNC1151 APT Group. Google Tag observed Russian, Belarusian, and Chinese threat actors targeting Ukrainian and European government and military organizations as well as individuals. The attackers carried out both phishing campaigns and distributed denial-of-service attacks. Fancy Bear has conducted several large credential phishing campaigns aimed at the users of Ukrainian media company UKR.net. Threat actors sent phishing emails from a large number of compromised accounts, non-Gmail and Google accounts. TAG researchers said that in 2 recent campaigns, the nation-state actors created blogspot domains that were used as the initial landing page, which then redirected visitors to credential phishing pages. The Google Tag team observed the Ghostwriter threat actors targeting Polish and Ukrainian military and government organizations in the last week that were gathering intelligence while the Russian army was invading the Ukraine. The CERT-UA recently warned Ukrainian citizens of new phishing attacks launched through compromised email accounts belonging to Indian entities. Google also reported that China-linked Mustang Panda cyber espionage group, aka temp.hex, have targeted European entities with lures related to the Ukrainian invasion. In some attacks spotted by Google, threat actors used malicious attachments with file names such as situation at the EU borders with Ukraine.zip. The researchers pointed out that this is the first time they observed Mustang Panda targeting European entities. The group was regularly observed targeting Southeast Asian organizations. Google Tag also observed distributed denial-of-service attacks against numerous Ukrainian government websites, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. We stick with Google for the next story. Google announced to have blocked a phishing campaign originally conducted by China-linked cyber espionage APT31, aka Zirconium, Judgment Panda, and Red Keras, and aimed at Gmail users associated with the US government. So we just had a story about Europe and Ukraine, and now we have a story where Google is blocking attacks against the US government. The campaign took place in February, and Google Threat Analysis Group team was not able to link it to the ongoing invasion of the Ukraine. Google Threat Analysis Group, again TAG, Director Shane Huntley confirmed that the IT giant was able to detect and block all phishing messages. APT31 is a China-linked app group that was involved in multiple cyber espionage operations. It made the headlines recently after the Checkpoint research team discovered that the group used a tool dubbed Jian, which is a clone of NSA Equation Group's EPME hacking tool, years before it was leaked online by Shadow Broker's hackers. In July 2021, the French National Cybersecurity Agency, ANSSI, warned of ongoing attacks against a large number of French organizations conducted by the China-linked APT31 cyber espionage group. The state-sponsored hackers were hijacking home routers to set up a proxy mesh of compromised devices to conceal its attack infrastructure. The cyber espionage group targeted entities in the EU, the United States, Canada in previous campaigns. In August 2021, the APT31 group employed a new strain of malware in attacks aimed at entities in Mongolia, Belarus, Canada, the US, and Russia. Yesterday, the Google Threat Analysis Group researchers revealed to have blocked, last week, to have blocked attacks against hundreds of Ukrainians conducted by Belarus and Russian state-sponsored hackers, which is the story preceding this one. The attacks have been attributed to the Russia-linked Fancy Bear group, APT28, and the Belarus-linked Ghostwriter, aka UNC1151 apt group. Google Tag observed Russian, Belarusian, and Chinese threat actors targeting Ukrainian and European government and military organizations, as well as individuals. The attackers carried out both phishing campaigns and DDoS attacks. So in case you didn't watch the previous story, this is just a recap of that one. Also attributed to Google. We now move on to patches. Researchers from cybersecurity firm Binarly discovered 16 high-severity vulnerabilities in various implementations of Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, or UEFI, firmware impacting multiple Hewlett-Packard Enterprise devices. An attacker can exploit these vulnerabilities to implant a firmware that survives operating system updates and bypasses UEFI secure boot, Intel boot guard, and virtualization-based security. Impacted devices include multiple HP enterprise devices, including laptops, desktops, point-of-sale systems, and edge computing nodes. By exploiting the vulnerabilities disclosed, attackers can leverage them to perform privileged code execution in firmware below the operating system and potentially deliver persistent malicious code that survives operating system reinstallations and allows the bypass of endpoint security solutions. Secure boot and virtualization-based security isolation, reads the analysis published by Binarly. The most severe of the vulnerabilities discovered by the researchers are memory corruption issues affecting the system management mode of the firmware. An attacker could trigger them to gain arbitrary code execution with the highest privileges. HP addressed the flaws with the release of HP UEFI firmware February 2022 security updates issued in February. So if you have an HP system and it is affected, it's highly recommended that you install this patch. Microsoft March 2022 Patch Tuesday security updates address 89 vulnerabilities in multiple products, including Microsoft Windows Components, Azure and Azure DevOps, Azure Sphere, Internet Explorer and Edge, Edge HTML, Exchange Server, Office and Office Services and Web Apps, SharePoint Server, Visual Studio, and Windows Hyper-V. The update includes fixes for 7 flaws in MS Exchange and 21 Microsoft Edge vulnerabilities. 14 vulnerabilities have been rated as critical, and 75 are listed as important in severity. 2 of these vulnerabilities are listed as publicly known, while 5 are actively exploited. 3 flaws addressed by the Microsoft March 2022 Patch Tuesday security updates are zero-day issues, and for 2 of them, CVE 2022-21990 and CVE 2022-24459, public exploits are available. CVE 2022-21990 is a remote desktop client remote code execution vulnerability. CVE 2022-24459 is a Windows fax and scan service elevation of privilege vulnerability. And CVE 2022-24512 .NET and Visual Studio remote code execution vulnerability. The most severe flaws fixed by the IT giant are CVE 2021-26867, which is a Windows Hyper-V remote code execution vulnerability with a CVSS score of 9.9. CVE 2021-26897, which is a Windows DNS Server remote code execution vulnerability with CVSS score of 9.8. And CVE 2021-27080 is an Azure Sphere unsigned code execution vulnerability with a CVSS score of 9.3. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. The popular hacker collective Anonymous continues to target Russian entities. A few hours ago, or last week, the group hacked into the most popular Russian streaming services to broadcast war footage from Ukraine and demonstrate to Russians the atrocity of the invasion ordered by Putin. Russian citizens ignore that their army is attacking the Ukrainian population and many children are dying. The collective remarked that it wants peace and wants only to hit Putin and not Russian citizens. It wants to stop the military invasion of Ukraine. The group is also aware that its operations could create conditions that could be abused by third-party attackers. The huge wave of attacks is creating problems for Russia that is fearing massive cyber attacks that could be conducted by nation-state actors, is preparing for disconnection from the global internet. They already have that, as we've known from one of my previous stories where I showed you that the legislation was in place and the internet service providers have that switch to be able to block external internet traffic. Now, the disconnection from the internet will allow Russia to apply massive censorship, limiting access to information for the Russian people. It should be the disconnection from the internet does allow Russia to apply massive censorship, since they blocked Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all of these other social media platforms. SharkBot is a banking Trojan and has been active since October 2021. It allows to steal banking account credentials and bypass multi-factor authentication mechanisms. The malware was spotted at the end of October by researchers from cybersecurity firms Cleafy and ThreatFabric. The name comes after one of the domains used for its command and control servers. The malware was observed targeting the mobile users of banks in Italy, the UK, and the US. The Trojan allows to hijack users' mobile devices and steal funds from online banking and cryptocurrency accounts. SharkBot is able to perform unauthorized transactions via automatic transfer systems, an advanced attack technique that is uncommon with Android malware. ATS enables attackers to autofill fields in legitimate mobile banking apps and initiate money transfers without a live operator intervention to authorize the transactions. Researchers pointed out that this technique allows the malware to receive a list of events to be simulated, allowing attackers to automate this and scale up their operations. The ATS features allow the malware to receive a list of events to be simulated, and they will be simulated in order to do the money transfers, reads a report published by NCC Group. Since these features can be used to simulate touches, clicks, and button presses, it can be used to not only automatically transfer money, but also install other malicious applications or components. Well, that's pretty dangerous. Experts discovered a reduced version of the SharkBot Trojan in the official Google Play Store. It only includes minimum required features such as ATS that allows it to install a full version of the Trojan. The malware was distributed via Google Play Store as a fake antivirus. It abuses the direct reply Android feature to automatically send reply notifications with a message to download the fake antivirus app. This spread strategy, abusing the direct reply feature, has been seen recently in another banking malware called FluBot, discovered by ThreatFabric. SharkBot allows to steal banking credentials in Android with one of the following techniques, most of which requests victims to enable the accessibility permissions and services. Injections, overlay, which is an overlay attack. SharkBot can steal credentials by showing a web view with a fake login website, phishing as soon as it detects the official banking app has been opened. It can use key logging. SharkBot can steal credentials by logging accessibility events related to text fields, changes in buttons clicked, and sending these logs to the command and control server. It can also use SMS interception. SharkBot has the ability to intercept and hide SMS messages, and it can use remote control ATS, which SharkBot has the ability to obtain full remote control of an Android device via the accessibility features. The popular cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase announced that it's blocking access to more than 25,000 blockchain addresses linked to Russian people and entities. Coinbase Chief Legal Officer Paul Grewal explained that its company is complying with sanctions imposed by governments around the world on individuals and territories in response to Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. The exchange is also using sophisticated blockchain analytics to identify accounts held by sanctioned individuals outside of Coinbase. The company is committed to blocking access to sanctioned actors, detecting attempts at evasion, and identifying high-risk behavior. The sanctioned individuals and entities will not be able to open new accounts. Coinbase also shared all the blocking addresses with the U.S. government. Now, if you think that cryptocurrency is secure and it's anonymous, well, this story right here should have you think again, probably think 1,000 times again about how anonymous this is. If they can track your location, and they can track who you are, and link you to some other information that shows whether or not you are in a sanction, they can also do that if you're not sanctioned. Grewal explained that Coinbase checks account applications against lists of sanctioned individuals or entities, including those maintained by other countries such as the United States, United Kingdom, European Union, United Nations, Singapore, Canada, and Japan. Other crypto companies refuse to block crypto addresses linked to Russian entities. Binance founder explained that cryptocurrencies won't help Russia evade sanctions. I would argue against that, but whatever. Security expert Max Kellerman discovered a Linux flaw dubbed Dirty Pipe and tracked as CVE 2022-0847 that can allow local users to gain root privileges on all major distros. The vulnerability affects Linux kernel 5.8 and later versions. The CVE 2022-0847 vulnerability allows overwriting data in arbitrary read-only files, which could lead to privilege escalation because unprivileged processes can inject code into root processes. Kellerman explained that the flaw is similar to CVE 2016-5195, aka Dirty Cow, and is more dangerous because it is easier to exploit. In a blog post, the researcher explained that he discovered the flaw while investigating corrupt access log files for one of its customers. Kellerman published technical details about the Dirty Pipe flaw, along with a proof of concept exploit that allows local users to overwrite any file contents in page cache, even if the file is not permitted to be written, immutable, or on a read-only mount. Bleepy Computer reported a tweet published by the security researcher PHISHING, who explained that it is possible to use the exploit to modify the etc. password file to see the root user without a password. Using this trick, a non-privileged user could execute the command su root to gain access to the root account. The researcher PHISHING also published an updated version of the exploit that allows gaining root privileges by overriding a SUID program like /exp/userbinsu to drop a root shell at temp.sh and then executing the script. So the process for this bug, to show sort of how long it takes, on April 29, 2021, the first support ticket about the file corruption was filed. Right? February 19th, 2022, the file corruption problem identified. There were some steps that happened between that, but February 19th, 2022, file corruption problem identified as Linux kernel bug, which turned out to be an exploitable vulnerability. So from April 2021 to February 2022, research and all this testing was done behind the scenes. Then on the 20th of February, the bug report, exploit, and patch was sent to the Linux kernel security team. Then on February 21st, the bug reproduced on Google Pixel 6. And then finally, on March 7th, a public disclosure was made. So from April 2021 to March 7th, 2022, which if you've seen my episodes on, how long it's taking to fix bugs and reasons why it takes so long in terms of, proof of concepts, testing, seeing who's responsible, and then going to levels deep in terms of dependencies, you can see here why it takes so long. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation and CISA published a flash alert to warn that the Ragnar Locker ransomware gang has breached the networks of at least 52 organizations across 10 critical infrastructure sectors. If you don't know who Ragnar Locker is and you haven't heard about, or if you haven't heard about them in a long time, I did an episode about Ragnar Locker many months ago, so check my YouTube channel and just scroll through or search for it, and you can learn more about the Ragnar Locker ransomware. The ransomware operation has been active since late December 2019. This is the second time that the FBI first shared IOC related to Ragnar Locker operation. The FBI first became aware of this threat in April 2020. As of January 2022, the FBI has identified at least 52 entities across 10 critical infrastructure sectors affected by Ragnar Locker ransomware, including entities in the critical manufacturing, energy, financial services, government, and information service sectors, reads the FBI's flash alert. Ragnar Locker ransomware actors work as part of a ransomware family, frequently changing obfuscation techniques to avoid detection and prevention. The flash alert provides details on attack infrastructure, Bitcoin addresses used by the gang to receive the payments of the ransom from the victims, and email addresses used by the gang's operators. The flash alert includes a series of mitigations to neutralize such attacks, like backing up critical data offline, ensuring copies of critical data are on an external hard drive or storage device. This information should not be accessible from the compromised network. You want to secure your backups and ensure data is not accessible for modification or deletion from the system where the data resides. You should use multi-factor authentication with strong passwords, including for remote access services. You should keep computers, devices, and applications patched and up to date. You should monitor cyber threat reporting regarding the publication of compromised VPN login credentials and change passwords and settings. I think it's important to elaborate on this. What they're saying is you should be monitoring like leak sites, like am I pawned, or have I been pawned, I think it is, to see whether or not either your email address or other services that have like databases of leaked VPN credentials, you want to check that to see if your stuff is in there, it's leaked. You want to add email banner to emails received from outside your organization. You want to disable unused remote access and remote desktop protocol ports and monitor remote access RDP logs. You want to audit user accounts with administrative privileges and configure access controls with least privilege in mind. And you want to implement network segmentation. Next up, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency added 2 critical security vulnerabilities in Mozilla Firefox, tracked as CVE 2022-26485 and CVE 2022-26486, to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. The U.S. agency has ordered federal civilian agencies to address both issues by March 21st, 2022. Mozilla released Firefox 97.0.2, Firefox ESR 91.6.1, Firefox for Android 97.3.0, and Focus 97.3.0 to address the 2 zero-day vulnerabilities that are actively exploited in attacks. The 2 vulnerabilities are use after free issues in XSLT parameter processing and in the Web GPU IPC framework, respectively. Successful exploitation of the flaws can cause a program crash or execute arbitrary commands on the machine. The description of both flaws included in the advisory are CVE 2022-26485, removing an XSLT parameter during processing could lead to an exploitable use after free vulnerability. We have had reports of attacks in the wild abusing this flaw. And CVE 2022-26486, an unexpected message in the Web GPU IPC framework could lead to a use after free and exploitable sandbox escape. Researchers from medical device cybersecurity company CyberMDX have discovered 7 serious flaws, collectively tracked as Access 7, in the, now it's not Access from Microsoft, it's different, in the widely used Exada platform of IoT solutions provider PTC. Access 7 could enable hackers to remotely execute malicious code, access sensitive data, or alter configuration on medical and IoT devices running PTC's Exada remote code and management agent, reads the report published by CyberMDX. The platform allows remote access and management of connected devices to manufacturers through an agent is installed on devices. Or that is installed on devices. The impact of these flaws is widespread. Experts determine that the issues impact more than 150 device models from over 100 manufacturers. Most of the impact vendors are in the healthcare sector with 55%, followed by IoT with 24%, IT with 8%, financial services 5%, and manufacturing with 4%. 3 of the Access 7 vulnerabilities are critical remote code execution issues. An attacker can exploit these flaws to take over a device, gain initial access to a network, and exfiltrate sensitive data. Some of the vulnerabilities could be exploited to trigger a denial of service condition and disrupt the operations of affected devices. The 7 issues are: number 1, use of hard-coded credentials with CW789 ticket. Number 2, missing authentication for critical function, CW306. 3, exposure of sensitive information to an unauthorized actor, which is CWE200. Improper limitation of a path name to a restricted directory, which is path traversal, CW22. Then there's missing authentication for critical function, which is CW306. Missing authentication for critical function, which is CW306. Improper check or handling of exceptional conditions with CW703. PTC has released security patches for Exada despite it has reached the end of life. It also released mitigations and workarounds for the vulnerabilities. Good news is that PTC is not aware of the exploitation of these vulnerabilities in attacks in the wild. Doesn't mean they're not happening, just means they're not aware of them. Samsung has disclosed a data breach. Threat actors had access to internal company data, including source code of Galaxy models. Last week, the Lapsus ransomware gang claimed to have stolen a huge trove of sensitive data from Samsung Electronics and leaked 190 gigabytes of alleged Samsung data as proof of the hack. The gang announced the availability of the sample data on its Telegram channel and shared a torrent file to download it. They also shared an image of the source code included in the stolen data. It includes device hardware, source code for every trusted applet installed on all Samsung devices, Trust Zone, with specific code for every type of TEOS, QSEE, TGRES, etc. This includes DRM modules and Keymaster Gatekeeper. Includes algorithms for all biometric unlock operations, including source code that communicates directly with sensors down to the lowest level. We're talking individual RxTX bit streams here. It includes BitLoader source code for all recent Samsung devices, including Knox data and code for authentication, as well as other data, confidential source code from Qualcomm. Now, the company confirmed that the attack resulted in the exposure of sensitive company data. The anonymous collective and other hacker groups continue to target Russia. In a recent attack, the collective has taken over more than 400 Russian cameras in support of the Ukraine. The hacktivists shared the live feed of the hacked cameras on the website BehindEnemyLines.live. The hacked cams are grouped in various categories based on their location: businesses, outdoor, indoor, restaurants, offices, schools, and security offices. Anonymous overlaid text describing the atrocities of an absurd invasion that Putin tries to hide from his population. The message states, Putin is killing children, 352 Ukrainian civilians dead, Russians lied to 200rf.com. In a similar campaign recently, the hacker group hacked the live TV channel streaming services in Russia to broadcast war footage from Ukraine. Anonymous is combating Russia destroying its propaganda machine using these same weapons to bring the war in Ukraine in front of the Russian people. Anonymous continues to target Belarus websites. The official website of the Russian Federal Penitentiary Service was hacked by the collective that published a picture against the war. New rumors of clamorous hacking are circulating online. The anonymous affiliate group Network Battalion 65 claims to have hacked Kaspersky and announced a leak of source code of the popular antivirus. So far, those claims have not been proven. Leaked data shows only what can be scraped from websites and non-internal system information. Some Russian federal agencies' websites were compromised in a supply chain attack. Threat actors compromised the stats widget used to track the number of visitors by several government agencies. Threat actors were able to deface the websites and block access to them. Disruptions in the operation of the federal agency's website occurred on Tuesday evening due to the hacking of the service widget of the monitoring system of state agencies' websites, which is being maintained by the Ministry of Economic Development and is integrated into the websites of a number of state agencies. Press service for the Russian Ministry of Digital Development, Communications, and Mass Media told Interfox. The compromised service was restored within an hour of the hack. The hacked websites included the websites of the Energy Ministry, the Federal State Statistics Service, the Federal Penitentiary Service, the Federal Bailiff Service, the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service, the Culture Ministry, and other Russian state agencies. Websites of state agencies are under serious protection and round-the-clock monitoring by cybersecurity teams. It is difficult to compromise these websites directly, so hackers attack resources through external services and thus gain access to demonstrate incorrect content, the press service said. Hackers hacked an application widget which is loaded on the websites of state bodies from an external resource, the press service added. After hacking the widget, hackers were able to publish incorrect content on the pages of the websites. The incident was promptly localized. The impacted websites displayed an image against the current invasion of the Ukraine. Researchers from IoT security company Armis have discovered 3 high-impact security flaws collectively tracked as TLStorm, affecting APT smart UPS devices. The flaws can allow remote attackers to manipulate the power of millions of enterprise devices carrying out extreme cyber-physical attacks. Uninterruptible power supply devices provide emergency backup power for mission-critical systems. If exploited, these vulnerabilities, dubbed TLStorm, allow for complete remote takeover of smart UPS devices and the ability to carry out extreme cyber-physical attacks. According to Armis data, almost 8 out of 10 companies are exposed to TLStorm vulnerabilities, reads the analysis published by Armis. APC has over 20 million devices worldwide, according to the researchers. Almost 8 out of 10 companies are exposed to TLStorm vulnerabilities. 2 of the TLStorm vulnerabilities reside in the TLS implementation used by cloud-connected smart UPS devices, while the third one is a design flaw in the firmware upgrade process of the smart devices. The researchers discovered that the firmware upgrades are not properly signed and validated. This third flaw could be exploited by an attacker to achieve persistence by planting a malicious update on a vulnerable UPS device. The list of flaws discovered by the expert CVE 2022-22806. TLS authentication bypass. A state confusion in the TLS handshake leads to authentication bypass, leading to remote code execution using a network firmware upgrade. CVE 2022-22805, TLS buffer overflow and memory corruption bug in packet reassembly. CVE 2022-0715, unsigned firmware upgrade that can be updated over the network. An attacker can trigger one of the above issues to gain remote code execution on vulnerable devices and interfere with the operation of the UPS to cause physical damage. We have to look at all of our devices, everything we use, including UPS systems, as computers. They have chips on them. They have circuit boards on them. They have an operating system. So that operating system, if it's not part of our upgrade process and maintenance process, and we just let it sit there and say, well, it just keeps working, it doesn't mean that it's not a security risk, as we can see by this story. The Emotet botnet continues to grow and has infected approximately 130,000 hosts since its resurrection in November 2021. In early 2021, law enforcement and judicial authorities worldwide conducted a joint operation named Operation Ladybird, which disrupted the Emotet botnet. At the time, the investigators had taken control of its infrastructure in an international coordinated action. That didn't last very long, now did it? This operation was a result of a joint effort between authorities in the Netherlands, Germany, the United States, United Kingdom, France, Lithuania, Canada, and Ukraine, with international activity coordinated by Europol and Eurojust. The law enforcement agencies were able to take over at least 700 servers used as part of the Emotet's botnet infrastructure. The FBI collected millions of email addresses used by Emotet operators in their malware campaigns as part of the cleanup operation. The Emotet banking Trojan has been active since at least 2014. They sure are resilient, aren't they? The botnet is operated by a threat actor tracked as TA542. The infamous banking Trojan was also used to deliver other malicious codes such as TrickBot and QBot Trojans, or ransomware such as Conti, Prolock, Ryuk, and eGregor. In November 2021, researchers from multiple cybersecurity firms, Cryptolamus, G-Data, and Advanced Intel reported that threat actors were using the TrickBot malware to drop an Emotet loader on infected devices. The experts tracked a campaign aimed at rebuilding the Emotet botnet using TrickBot's infrastructure as Operation Reach-Around. Since its report, Emotet operators have amassed an impressive number of infected systems, researchers from Lumen's Black Lotus Labs reported. Researchers pointed out that the new Emotet botnet supports new features to avoid detection and analysis, such as the use of encryption for network traffic and the separation of the process list into its own module. The new version uses elliptic curve cryptography with a public key to perform the encryption and a separate algorithm that is used to perform data validation. The new version is also able to gather additional information about the infected host. Experts also report significant growth of the command and control server pool late February through March 4th. One of the most important features in the new Emotet infrastructure is the apparent absence of bot command and control servers, which are bots that would receive a UPnP module that enabled an infected device to act as a command and control server by opening a port on the user's router that would then allow it to proxy traffic from Emotet bots to a higher tier command and control server. Most of the Emotet command and control servers are located in the United States and Germany. The rest of the list of top 10 countries by volume of command and control servers includes France, Brazil, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Canada, United Kingdom, and India. Cisco Talos researchers have uncovered a malware campaign targeting Ukraine's IT army. Threat actors are using InfoStealer malware mimicking a distributed denial of service tool called the Liberator. The Liberator tool is circulating among pro-Ukrainian hackers that use it to target Russian propaganda websites. Ooh, so hackers are infecting hackers. After Russia started invading Ukraine, the Ukrainian Ministry for Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, called to action against Russia attempting to create an IT army composed of volunteers to launch a massive offensive against Russia. A Telegram channel was used to coordinate the efforts and plan the cyber attacks that will be conducted by the IT army. Now, the tainted Liberator tool was advertised on Telegram. The original version of the tool was developed by a group called Disbalancer. Liberator is advertised as a distributed denial of service tool to launch attacks against Russian propaganda websites. The tool was developed to allow not technical people to easily launch an attack against a list of Russian sites fetched from a server. Oh, this is just nasty. The campaign uses a dropper disguised as the Disbalancer.exe tool, which is protected with the ASProtect packer for Windows executables. Once malware is dropped on the victim's systems, it performs anti-debug checks. Then it follows a process injection step to load the Phoenix information stealer in memory. The variant employed in the attack against the IT army is able to steal a broad range of data, including web browser data, VPN tools, Discord, Steam, and cryptocurrency wallets. The collected data is sent to a remote IP address on port 6666. Talos experts believe this is an opportunistic campaign. The same IP address has been distributing Phoenix since November 2021. Vodafone announced to have launched an investigation after the Lapsus cybercrime group claimed to have stolen its source code. The Lapsus gang claims to have stolen approximately 200 gigabytes of source code files allegedly contained in 5,000 GitHub repositories. Early this week, the cybercrime group asked their subscribers in a poll on message app Telegram, what should we leak next? Followed by three options: Vodafone source code, the source code and database of Portuguese media cyber corporation Impresa, the source code of Mercado Libre and Mercado Pago e-commerce companies. In February, Vodafone Portugal suffered a major cyber attack that caused service outages in the country. Media reported the temporary disruption of 4G and 5G communications and television services. The Cyber News research team identified an open Elasticsearch database which contained more than 243 gigabytes of data detailing current and historic ship positions that is exposed to the public. Analyzing the data, the team determined that it is highly likely to belong to the Yangtze River ports of Nanjing and Zhangjiagang. The discovery is especially timely given the escalation of the geopolitical situation caused by Russia's recent decision to invade Ukraine. This could have gone very badly if bad guys had found it before we did, said a spokesperson for Cyber News. Elasticsearch lacks a default authentication and authorization system, meaning the data must be put behind a firewall or else run the risk of being freely accessed, modified, or deleted by threat actors. The push access logs of the ZIG report, GEReport.com, found on the database contain user IDs and, most importantly, API keys that could in theory permit universal access, allowing a cyber criminal to write new data about current ship positions. In layman's terms, what this means is that if left unplugged, the gap could allow threat actors to read, delete, or alter any of the entries in the exposed database, or even create new ones for cargoes or ships that don't exist. Moreover, conventional criminals could physically hijack a ship and jam its communications, leaving the port that controls and tracks its movements unaware that the vessel had been boarded. That in turn could jeopardize up to 3,100 vessels that transport more than 250 million tons of cargo annually to and from the two ports, not to mention putting at risk the lives of the estimated 40,000 passengers a year that use Nanjing for sea travel. The Cyber News team said because of the way Elasticsearch architecture is built, anybody with access to the link has full administrative privileges over the data warehouse and is thus able to edit or delete all of the contents and, most likely, disrupt the normal workflow of these ports. Since being alerted to the problem by Cyber News, the owners of the Elasticsearch database have enforced HTTP authentication as a requirement for access, effectively cutting it off from the public side of the internet. Anonymous announced to have hacked the Russian Federal Service for Supervision of Communications, Information Technology, and Mass Media, also known as Roskomnadzor. The agency is responsible for monitoring, controlling, and censoring Russian mass media, and according to Anonymous, it is controlling the disinformation campaign about the ongoing invasion of the Ukraine. The hacktivists have stolen sensitive data from the organization and released 820 gigabytes of data detailing the ongoing activity of the agency. The leaked documents are arranged in two major categories, one containing more than 360,000 files that date up to March 5th, 536.9 gigabytes, and another containing two databases containing HR procedures, 290 gigabytes in size. Anonymous linked group GhostSec also announced to have hacked the Department of Information projects. Russia fears that images of the atrocity of their absurd invasion could destabilize the internal political context. For this reason, it is applying strict censorship, blocking Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all these other social media channels. Yeah, exactly. The rumors of a cyber attack against Ubisoft circulated online in the last few days, while data extortion group Lapsus claimed to have hacked the company. Over the last few days, multiple users reported problems accessing some services of the gaming firm's software. Ubisoft has finally announced to have suffered a cybersecurity incident that caused temporary disruption. The company hired external experts to investigate the incident and determine its impact on data infrastructure. Duh, because that's what everybody does. At this time, there is no evidence of a data breach during the incident, and the services are up and running normally. This time, there are no details about the incident. Lapsus gang may have breached the company network and exfiltrated internal data. The cybercriminal group has recently stolen sensitive data from giant firms including Nvidia and Samsung that already disclosed the data breach. Thursday, March 10th, Lapsus ransomware gang announced they are starting to recruit insiders employed within major technology giants and ISPs. Such companies include Microsoft, Apple, EA Games, and IBM. Their scope of interest include major telecommunications companies such as Claro, Telefonica, and AT&T. This isn't the first time that Ubisoft suffered a cyber incident incidentally. In December, the gaming firm disclosed a data breach that resulted in unauthorized access to Just Dance user data. The security breach was caused by a misconfiguration. The good news is that the problem had been quickly resolved. Researchers from cybersecurity firm Abnormal Security observed threat actors spreading the Bazaar Loader or Bazaar Backdoor malware via website contact forms. TrickBot operation has recently arrived at the end of the journey. According to AdVintel, some of its top members move on under the Conti ransomware gang, which is planning to replace the popular banking Trojan with a stealthier Bazaar Backdoor. Bazaar Backdoor was developed by TrickBot's core team of developers and was used to achieve remote access into corporate networks and use it to deploy the ransomware. With the increasing popularity of TrickBot, it became easy to detect it with anti-malware solutions. For this reason, the gang began employing the Bazaar Backdoor for initial access to networks. The Bazaar Backdoor malware is usually spread through phishing messages using weaponized documents. Security firms rapidly updated their solution to detect these campaigns, forcing the threat actors behind the malware to use new techniques to deliver the malware. The attacks leveraging an organization's website contact form started in December 2021. Threat actors used Bazaar Backdoor to deploy ransomware strains or Cobalt Strike beacons. In one of the attacks analyzed by the experts, the attackers posed as employees of a Canadian construction company who submitted a request for a quote of products supplied by the target. Once an employee has responded to the phishing attempt, the attackers continue negotiations in an effort to trick victims into downloading a malicious file. The attacks, analyzed by the experts, used a malicious ISO file supposedly relevant to the negotiation. The victims are invited to download it from file sharing services like TransferNow and WeTransfer. Contact forms were already used in the past. In April, Microsoft researchers spotted a malware campaign abusing contact forms on legitimate websites to deliver the iced ID malware. The ISO image used in these attacks, observed by Abnormal Security, contains a .link file and a .log file. The former includes a command instruction to open a terminal window using regserver32.exe to run the so-named file dumbstack.log, which is, in reality, a Bazaar Backdoor DLL. The backdoor is injected into the service host.exe process and awaits commands from the command control server. At the time of the investigation, some of the command control IP addresses were down, while others were not able to provide the second stage malware, making it impossible to analyze it. Based on this, it's clear that the threat actors were attempting to execute a multi-stage attack with Bazaar Loader as a first step, concludes the report. Bazaar Loader is usually the first stage in a more sophisticated multi-stage malware attack, often used to deploy Conti ransomware or Cobalt Strike, for example. Lockbit ransomware gang claimed to have compromised the network of Bridgestone Americas, one of the largest manufacturers of tires, and stolen data from the company. The Bridgestone Americas family of enterprises includes more than 50 production facilities and 55,000 employees throughout the Americas. Lockbit operators plan to release the stolen data by March 15, 2022 at midnight if the company will not pay the ransom. On February 27th, some company employees at Bridgestone's LA Laverne plant reported being sent home due to a possible cyber attack. Bridgestone launched an investigation into the incident and hired a prominent consultant firm to understand the full scope and nature of the incident. Lockbit continues to be one of the most active ransomware operations at this time. Unlike other groups, it pointed out that it is an apolitical group and is only interested in money. Lockbit continues to be one of the most active ransomware operations at this time. Unlike other groups, it pointed out that it is an apolitical group that is only interested in money. We now move on to other security news. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has updated the alert on Conti ransomware operations. The agency added 100 domain names used by the group. The joint report published by CISA, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the National Security Agency in September warned of an increased number of Conti ransomware attacks against U.S. organizations. The indicators of compromise added to the report was provided by the U.S. Secret Service. Recently, a Ukrainian researcher leaked 60,694 messages, internal chat messages belonging to the Conti ransomware operation, after the announcement of the group of its support to Russia. He was able to access the database XMPP chat server of the Conti group. The leak against the Conti ransomware and the data leak is retaliation for its support for the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The leaked data in second round included the source code for the Conti ransomware encryptor, decryptor, and builder, along with the administrative panel and the Bazaar Backdoor API. The leaked data includes information about the attack infrastructure used by the gang, including domains employed in Bazaar Backdoor-based attacks. Conti cyber threat actors remain active, and reported Conti ransomware attacks against U.S. and international organizations have risen to more than 1,000 Notable attack vectors include TrickBot and Cobalt Strike. Reads the report. The following domains have registration and naming characteristics similar to domains used by groups that have distributed content ransomware. Many of these domains have been used in malicious operations. However, some may be abandoned or may share similar characters coincidentally. CISA added 98 domain names that were used by the gang and that share registration and naming characteristics similar to those used in content ransomware operations. The experts pointed out that the new domains added to the report were not included in the leak of the Ukrainian researcher. With that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.